and welcome to the Rangers Journal here on the Friday show. I'm going to apologise to my co-host Scott because I've just wasted 15 minutes of your time, mate, because we were having a chat and I guess there's two buttons you're meant to press to start recording. So we're live now. I really apologise, but let's try and remember these good points we had. And see if we can't remember it, we'll just tell everyone the other one was better. So mate, I'm so sorry. Welcome to the show.
No, it's all good. It's all good. There was so much positivity in that early part. So I'm sure I'll look forward to going over it again.
It's gone forever, unfortunately. Well, we're here to kind of look over, I guess, the season as a whole, as well as looking over the coming game against Hearts, but we can also maybe make a comment on the cup final because that really is the only thing that's left important this season. I asked you before your feelings at the moment. Can you tell me them again, please, mate?
Just frustration, to be honest with you. I look at it's been a bit of a roller coaster of a season that started with a lot of new signings. First couple of months were a bit of a shambles, to be honest with you. Didn't make it into the Champions League. Lost the first Old Firm game without even laying a glove on Celtic. Michael Beale obviously fell on his sword at the end of September. I think I said to you there, Billy, that left the stadium as toxic an Ibrox after we got beat to Aberdeen end of September, thinking, I can't believe that the season fell over. I know that sounds defeatist and all that, but that was the atmosphere in the stadium was horrendous. I thought this is just so. New manager comes in. I think we beat Hearts, we beat Hibs, and we had a run of good results. Get yourself into the next round in Europe. A fantastic result in Betis. Follow it up on the Sunday with a trophy. You know, I mean, I think that was huge for Philippe Clement to win a trophy so early in his tenure. I think that was something that Michael Beale had the opportunity back February last year in the League Cup final against Celtic. Didn't happen. So I thought, great. You know, we obviously went into the winter break, lost the Old Firm game against them at New Year. Not a particularly great performance. I think one or two players had played with an injury, but we came back after the break. I thought we done well. The month of February, I think it feels like a lifetime ago now, to be honest with you. The sort of positivity of leaving Ibrox, the Aberdeen game, the midweek, great atmosphere. Cantwell scores the winning goal. We then beat Hearts at the end of the month, 4-5, I think it was. Yeah. And then you go to Kilmarnock on a Wednesday night. So coming into March, you know, we thought we were going into a run of fixtures that on paper they looked favourable. You know, I think also, and still don't look too far ahead. You know, so we get beat with Motherwell. We're not punished because Celtic dropped points at Hearts the next day. But then we have probably about a 10, 14-day spell where we draw the Old Firm game at Ibrox, where we all think we have to win because we've got the game in hand, and you can put yourselves into a position where you're 5 points clear, even though you've still got to go across the city. But you draw the Old Firm game, which is you've managed to get a point, which is great. But you've then put in two horrific performances against Ross County and Dundee, and that's where the damage was. That's where the damage was done, basically. And I think the sort of key players, there's a lot of chopping and changing with the team, but the forms fell off a cliff, and we obviously went across there last weekend, and what happened, you know. But overwhelming frustration that a Celtic side that's decent but isn't the best Celtic side of recent years, we have handed them through, I would say, our own failings over the last couple of months. We have handed them the £40 million plus that they're going to they're going to pocket from the Champions League, and we now have to have the stress of 2 difficult qualifiers to enable us to get in and get a share of that.
No, when was the realization that we had blown it for you? Because I know the final nail in the coffin was the last Old Firm game, but for me, when I left the stadium in Dundee that night, and I was trying to be positive, me and Scotty were there, but I think I knew then that this isn't going to happen.
No, as I said, those three games. I mean, I must admit, sitting at half time in the Old Firm game at 2-0, I'm thinking, this is, I can't actually. So you managed to get a point. I certainly wasn't celebrating a point, but a point given where we were. But when you've left the same as yourself that Wednesday night, it was that the balls burst basically. I think that's it. They know how to see. When I was listening to another podcast talking about Manchester City, when Manchester City have the league title in their hands, they never give it up. And I think Celtic are very similar in that regard, by and large, in recent years. When they get the opportunity, they'll win the last 5 games, 6 games, or whatever it is that's needed. So I think the damage was done, and I think when those 2 games, particularly against Ross County and Dundee.
Thinking back to this time last year, it's very similar feeling for me, as I said to you before, but I've got a bit more belief in Clement as manager than I did as Beale. Not really based on anything other than Clement's record of winning things, as opposed to Michael Beale, who, he won the league as an assistant manager with us, but hasn't really done anything elsewhere. We brought in the winter window last season, Raskin and Cantwell, who I think had a big impact on the way we were playing. And then we're hearing that we're going to build a team round the likes of Cantwell, be your star player. And we start the opening game of the season, and you were saying that you were there that day, and Cantwell doesn't get started. He's on the bench. And going back to that time, the bust ball for me was that game. I don't think I've really, apart from a very small period, as you say at the beginning of this year, that you lose your first game away to Command, like I feel it's already gone.
Aye, no, without a doubt, it's I still struggle to understand what the strategy was. I mean, I think back to that night, and I have recollection of John Lundstrom tactically being asked to almost play as a third centre half. He was playing like on the right hand side of a back 3 when we had possession, and trying 40-50 yard passes and what have you. And it's 90 minutes of my life that I'll never ever get back. But you're thinking Cantwell is your whether you think he's missing this and he's missing that in his locker. You've basically, Beale has pinned his hopes on this guy, and he spoke about how he's this and how he's that, and he had ended the season very, very positively with some decent performances, So I think there was the pre-season hadn't been. I know you don't take massive attention to what happens in pre-season. I've got a 6-year-old who's obviously just getting into the Rangers, and they're the ideal games to take the kids along to. And the Newcastle game, they were a Premiership side. They just looked a yard sharper, much faster. Just like a Premiership side. Yeah. Anthony Gordon was just on fire when he came on, and what have you. Then I think we play Hamburg, and then we play Olympiacos.
Was that the season?
That was it, the year before. Olympiacos and Hamburg, and none of them were. And you look at it, and Sam Lammers actually looked all right in those pre-season games. And that's why I'm saying don't pay attention to what happens in pre-season, because when the action truly started, Sam Lammers was a huge disappointment, sort of thing, So August, you've then obviously got papped out the Champions League, humiliated over in Eindhoven by a far better side. But then August and September was just, the mood music. It just went down and down and down and down. And obviously Michael Beale then lost his job.
Yeah. For me, we just touching on Sam Lammers, it's not that he's not, or that he's a bad player. I just don't think he's suitable for our type of league. I mean, our league has referees that let things go that doesn't let go in England, for instance, and doesn't let go in Europe. And I don't think Sam Lammers was built really to play in a league that's as rough, if that's the right word. But
I don't think Michael Beale knew where he was. He was very
I'm
much.
going to touch on. Yeah, I'm going to touch on Beale, because Beale should have known. I mean, what type of league this is. That's the astounding thing about it. I mean, touch on the transfer fees, because for me, I don't think we can say. I don't think anyone is saying this, but you can't say the board didn't back Michael Beale last season, because you've got 6 million for Danilo, Cyril Dessers 5 million, Lammers 4 million. That's the best part of 15 million spent on your forward line, and I don't think. I mean, Danilo aside, we're not expecting Cyril Dessers to be our main striker next season, so you can't say this was money well spent.
No, it's. I mean, I think earlier I basically said I had not a case of saying I told you so. However, I would rewind back to my thoughts. June, July time, I did have concerns that Michael Beale was effectively doing the deals.
Yeah.
You know, I think sometime I know there was probably other people, you know, behind the scenes, but it just seemed that he had too much influence, too much power. You know, it's a bit like playing a game of Football Manager sort of thing. But unfortunately, this is real life, and what we spent and the lack of success from those signings, we will suffer for it this year, next year, you know, and unless we manage to get the Champions League money, you're in a situation. I don't think even just last summer. I think our recruitment across the last 3 summers hasn't been good enough, and that's why we are where we are.
I mean, it's a strange way to do things in this day and age, because gone are the days of Walter Smith turning up at Gaz's compound and asking him to sign for us. No offense to Michael Beale, but he doesn't have the same presence as Walter Smith turning up at your door to get you to sign for him. But hopefully now the club have learned that lesson in regards that one man can't shape the whole transfer budget or targets or identity of the team. It really has to come from either a collective or, you know, experts other than someone like Michael Beale.
It's a whole wider conversation, but I think I said there's a lot of parallels between Rangers and Manchester United at the moment. I think you go through managers, and managers have different styles. I think across recent managers, we've had Van Bronckhorst played a certain way, we've had Michael Beale played a certain way, we've got Philippe Clement coming in wanting to play. There's no, without being cliched, the identity. What is the identity of how we want to play? What is the particular type of signings that we want to make, so that this is the way that we will play, sort of, so that whether there is a change of manager, so you're not going, you've got players from Steven Gerrard's era, you've got players from Gio's era, you've got all the, and you end up with a mismatch of. And that's what we have now.
Well, we have 5, because Tav was signed by Warburton, and maybe even 6. I can't remember who Coutinho signed. But what was I going to touch on? Seems like teams, especially the big teams, want to have like a cult of personality. They want a Pep Guardiola leading the line. Whereas for a club like ours, I think you're right in saying Man United tried to replicate that, and it's not worked, because you need to have a thesis isn't the word. I can't think of the word. It is, you need to have a style of play that we're going to play to, and we're going to sign signings based on. And if we're going to do this, buying players when they're young and try and make profits on them, then we need someone above the manager. I think, as I say, a group of people collectively deciding these things. And
I think what happened, for me, what happened last summer, and you've seen obviously Sam Lammers has went on loan and been relatively successful, which is hopefully good for us with regard to recouping some cash. But he said himself that he was a number 9, but we then tried to turn him into a number 10 or a wide right player.
Not only just a number 10, we start playing him as a number 10 over Todd Cantwell, who is a number 10.
So for me, should it be Lammers would have been the 9 and Cantwell would have been the 10. So effectively, you've got Dessers, you've got Lammers, you've got Danilo. That's your 3 number 9s, and you then pick which number 9's going to. But again, this is the whole part of recruitment, how we're identifying players. John Lundstrom signed back in 2021 by Steven Gerrard after 55. John Lundstrom was a sort of box-to-box number 8 when he was playing at Sheffield United. Didn't happen at Rangers in that position, and then on the run to Seville, he ended up as one of the sort of 2 sitting midfield players. So John Lundstrom is being shoehorned into a position that he hadn't played in his whole career, and I'm not here to defend him, but I'm just saying that's what the way that we go about our signings. Rabbi Matondo, his best form was as a left winger playing in, I think it was Schalke. We sign him under Van Bronckhorst, and we play him that first game you talk about against Spurs. Spurs and West Ham, he's playing as a right winger, and very quickly it's clear that he's not a right winger, so we seem to think that we can sign players and turn them into something that they've not been when they've played at their previous clubs.
I'm sure it's not as simple as this, but I think from a fan's point of view, you're thinking, can we just sign a player that plays in the position that we need them to play in? So I just say, not if we want a number 6, can we just sign a number 6 rather than signing an 8 and getting them to play back? I think John Lundstrom was surprised at the style of play up here. Like, I don't think he's never played in a team that had so much possession.
Yeah, I mean, he's played his whole career at Sheffield United, where it's like 40% possession, and you're pressing and you're tackling and that sort of situation, and it's a completely different. But you're then bringing him in, and we are 65% possession, 70% possession, and it doesn't work. And then he ends up playing in a position that he's not suited to. I mean, he had good games in that position, but by and large, it's like square peg, round hole, and that happens, and that has to change. That way of thinking, we have to sign a number 6 defensive midfield player that is a specialist. If you can get an all-rounder, great, but you just want somebody that is Stephen Davis, age 26, or somebody of that can play that position, and no try to, like Nico Raskin. Is Raskin a 6 or is he an 8? Sort of situation. I just think that we have to be a bit smarter when we're operating in the transfer market with a limited budget. I think you have to get more right than you get wrong, and we're getting more wrong than we're getting right at the moment.
I think if we're looking at, I said on the pod the other night there, if we're looking at double figure signings, we maybe need up to 10 players coming in, we need 9 of them to be not just a success all round, but ready right away to play in this league. I mean, touching on Matondo, he was used to playing in a league where they could punt the ball over the defender's head and he can run into it in space. We don't get space other than maybe if Hearts, Hibs maybe give us a wee bit more, Celtic give us a wee bit more, but we don't have that with Kilmarnock. We don't have that with Dundee. We don't have it with St Mirren. He's not a player suited to this league.
I think Matondo, and I think it probably highlights where I still say that his best performances for Rangers have been off the bench, when it's like the last 20, 25 minutes when the game's a bit more stretched and the opposition's tiring a wee bit, and he's able to cause a bit more, but use him as an example. He's now scored a couple cutting in off the left-hand side and bent it in the top corner, but I think you need to find more to your game than you can't do that every time you get the ball and stick it in the top corner sort of thing, But again, that's, you've signed somebody that doesn't suit the sort of football that you're actually going to be playing every week.
That's right. Well, there was one success story for the signings last summer, and that's Jack Butland, who's been my player of the season. I think he was voted player of the season by the players. What did you know about him coming in? Because I'll be honest, I knew that he sat on the bench for Man United for a few years, but that's about it.
I think he's one of those that a number of years ago he was on the cusp of the England squads and made a few. He was at Stoke and what have you, and then his career appeared to he went to Crystal Palace. Then somebody else came in. He got bumped to Man United as a backup goalkeeper. And then obviously we knew we had to sign a replacement for Alan McGregor. So I think I was pleased that you've managed to sign somebody that's came from the English Premier League, and he's clearly came for a good wage, but he could have easily stayed down there. He wanted to come and play football, and very quickly, he looked as though he spoke well. He carries his cell really, really well. His performances, and I think for a huge part of the season, he's been excellent, and I think has made a lot of big saves. And I really, really hope we can keep a hold of him for a bit longer, because keepers of his quality don't come cheap, and we've obviously managed to get him on a free signing. Wouldn't be free because obviously he's probably he's picked up a nice. But Jack Butland just got it. He just speaks really, really well. His press conferences, his interviews, and what have you. And I think it was clear very early. We've got a good one here. We don't need to worry about the goalie, but we'll worry about everything outside that.
I know. As I said earlier on, I felt totally deflated at the beginning of the season, but it did come to a head after a few bad performances, obviously losing the Ibrox to them, and then the Aberdeen game. You were at that game, is that right?
I was, aye.
What was the feeling that day?
Toxic. It was just, I think it ended up 3-1. Toxic. Just a horrible, horrible atmosphere. The players done the lap around the stadium at the end, and the abuse that players were taking. I think most of my ire at that moment was for Michael Beale, to be honest with you, rather than the players. It's funny how the season it flips. We're now in this position now on the 17th of May, where you would say that it's the players that are getting most of the criticism rather than the manager, So it was you left the stadium that afternoon thinking, I can't believe we're 7 points behind or whatever it was, and you just couldn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. And then obviously he fell on his sword, and I'm sure I can't mind if we went to Limassol the midweek after that, and then we put
Stephen
in
Davis took over.
Stephen Davis took over, which means he's, Davo's a legend and great guy and all that sort of stuff. But I wouldn't have wished that on Pep Guardiola, to be honest with you, to walk into what Philippe Clement then did, and it's we can talk about what happened after that.
For me, obviously, game one of the season would have been far too reactionary to sack your manager on that day, but I would have been happy if we'd done it. But certainly the writing was on the wall after the Celtic defeat. He should have been gone then for me, and I think it was just indecision by the board. I think they knew, we all knew by that point that this wasn't working and we needed somebody else. I'm not saying that Clement comes in earlier that we do win the league, but I think Beale should have been gone before the Aberdeen game. The performance didn't improve, to be honest with you, in Limassol. It was the same type of lacklustre performance. We get a few candidates for manager. One of them is Frank Lampard, the other being Kevin Muscat, and then Philippe Clement. Did you know anything about the other two, or did you know anything about Clement either?
The name, I had a recollection of him when he actually played. I didn't know what type he played, but I knew he had played down south. I'm sure it was Coventry he played for down south. Muscat, I could only recall he wasn't very good when he played for us. And Frank Lampard I would never have. I like Frank Lampard, the TV person, the football pundit, nice guy, all that sort of situation, fantastic player. But would he be a Rangers manager for me? No, no particularly. I just don't think he can. I don't think he carries himself in the way that I would want a Rangers manager to. Not to say that he's not a good guy and all that. It just I wouldn't. I've watched his Chelsea teams and his Everton teams, and he done okay at Chelsea. The season they had the transfer embargo, brought through a lot of young players. So from that point of view, I would say that was the positive, that he might have actually been more proactive with regard to introducing young players. But I was very much open-minded who was going to get the job. I hadn't put my I think some people said I was in this camp or I was in that camp. I hadn't really. I was just a bit. I was still a bit scunnered, and I was just like, go and just appoint somebody that wins Rangers games of football, and we'll take it for there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the two. I don't know really anything about Clement, so I wasn't in his camp or not in his camp, but I was very much in the camp of the other two were very lazy, typical of our board type of candidates. Frank Lampard, to me, was just trying to replicate what we did with Steven Gerrard, and then Muscat would have been trying to replicate what Celtic did with Ange coming in, because they played a very similar style to him. So it seemed like a lazy choice of candidates, to be honest. But I was pleased in the end when I looked into what Clement had done. Won the league with two different teams, won cups, been a success basically as a manager from where he's been. I liked his outlook on football. I liked the fact he wanted strong, physical type of football that I think suits our league more than whatever Beale was trying to do, whatever that was. He started. None of us could complain with how he started, can we?
No, listen, 4-0 against Hibs. I mean, I don't think he said it himself. I don't think it was a perfect performance, but I think we left Ibrox that night or that day thinking, that'll do. So sort of situation, and then just it was very much a take it game by game, and I don't think anybody really knew what. I think we went through a spell of matches where what then came after. This is where it gets a bit frustrating for me, where we weren't giving up a lot of chances. The structure of the side seemed a bit more solid, and then we had a run of positive results, which obviously came from that. But he had a positive early run,
and he had a lot of injuries as well. He kept talking about trying to solve problems.
Aye, injuries. I think he's probably fed up talking about injuries, and I think it's just been one thing after another. And I live for the press conference where the injury update is just minimal, sort of thing. It seems to be an issue more than ever this season. But I think for as long as I can remember, Rangers haven't been great with regard to injuries and rehab and all that sort of situation. But that's another conversation. But yeah, Philippe Clement came in. I think he spoke about I think synergy was the word that he used. Right. I mean, I spoke about leaving Ibrox the end of September, down in the dumps, and I think it didn't happen straight away, but the crowd started to, I'm not saying believe, but the crowd then started to get a bit back behind the players and what have you, and there was a bit more collaborative between the team and the support, which I think he'd spoke about. He wants to get that synergy between but better. Is that where that everything from all that sort together. All that sort of nonsense, you know what I mean? But I think Philippe Clement couldn't have started any better. I think I said earlier, I says progressed top to group in Europe, which when you think about dropping 5 points across 2 games against Limassol, I mean, it's quite staggering that we've actually managed to to top the group, avoid the extra round, and you then win a trophy before Christmas. You know, I mean, in the job 10 weeks or something like that, and he's lifted. And I think as a Rangers manager, I think that's important. I think to win any, I mean, you can talk about the League Cup not being massively important, but it's a trophy, and I always look at the first trophy of the season, and then you can hopefully kick on from there, and that's what we did for a large chunk of the next few months before the wheels came off.
The wheels coming off, I do think. I mean, it's probably got a lot to do with players and mentality, as we were talking about before we started as well. Like, when these players have something expected of them, can they deliver? And I'll even go back to, was it the Ross County game where we could have went top but didn't? And I think I said on the pod that time, it felt like a missed opportunity because they just, one goal was all they needed and they couldn't deliver that. And I'm being probably too harsh, but I'm still pretty annoyed with them. But when they have a chance to go 5 points ahead, they blow it. When they get a chance to go ahead with the games in hand, they blow it. But I don't think that's been. I think it's maybe even been worse than previous seasons because some seasons are over just in January. At least we had, we played our second last game at least, and there was still a technical chance we could win. They've kept it alive longer than maybe we expected of previous games.
I don't think we again reference that Aberdeen game. Nobody left Ibrox that night thinking, come the start of May, are we going to be in with any shout? At that point, you thought the last 5 games will be dead rubber matches. Mm-hmm. You'll not be playing for anything. So the frustration is, when I reference how I was feeling, the frustration is we had it in our hands and we couldn't see it through. That's the overwhelming word for this for this season is frustration, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. No, and also agree that the cup, you're not getting me saying that the League Cup's not important. Every competition we're in, for me, is a potential. Okay, Europe, you might be putting it a push, but we should be winning more than often than not the 2 cups, and obviously the league's going to take a bit more, but we should be at least waving a couple of shiny things at the fans at each season, no matter what it is. They're all important. But yeah, and also the injuries we've had. I mean, for the game the other night, there was 11 players out. I mean, no manager's going to be able to keep that going, that train on the tracks for too long when you've got so many injuries and so regularly.
Yeah, I think the manager spoke about it a lot. I think what happened pre-season has basically, I don't know what the fitness situation was. What was the expectation? What condition did players come back into pre-season? I've heard various stories with regard to that. That's why injuries have if your body's not in the right condition from the start, then you're
don't tell me if you think you can't say what it is, but what kind of thing are you talking about there? Because I don't know what condition they came back in.
I'd heard one or two players that had came back overweight. I'm not naming. No,
that's okay. I just wondered what kind of issues you were meaning.
No, just conditioning issues, because I think the manager has spoken the last couple of days about the pre-season that the players are about to face is going to be one that they've not had before, but they're also going to have a fitness program to follow whilst they're on holiday, sort of situation, which any sort of pro. So again, the injuries, I think it comes about because you've not trained the right way from the outset of the start of July, and I think back to Michael Beale's comments about the pre-season games, and I remember one, I think it was the Olympiacos, and we looked very leggy, and I think he said, we'd done a double session or something on the Monday or something like that. I'm not an expert about these things. No. I don't know. You trust these people. these people, you trust these people. But I remember thinking a double session before a game. I'm not too sure about that sort of situation. But we'll get the benefit from it as the season goes on. So you basically go, he knows what he's talking about. And it clearly doesn't. The season just one injury after another. Ryan Jack injured, back for 3-4 games, injured for 3 months, back for 3 or 4 games, and so on and so forth. And I think you saw the availability chart that came out of the players signed. I mean, Cyril Dessers, you would never have expected. Obviously, Danilo's injury has basically meant that Dessers has played pretty much. But credit to Dessers, he's always been available. Touch wood that there's no anything happens between now and the cup final. But Lundstrom always available, and that's why the manager likes these guys, because they're durable and they can handle this 3 games a week. So the manager spoke a lot about it. I think he's basically said, "I'm going to fix this." So I think the proof will be in the pudding if we have this conversation in 6 months' time, and the opening part of the season has shown similar problems, then we've got a problem. But you just have to place your trust in Philippe Clement and the people that he's got, that we're going to be in a better shape.
He's made a rod for his own back with this one, because he's basically said that he knows what the problem is and he's going to sort it. So I hope he does, really hope he does. And it seems like there's going to be maybe a bit of change in the medical department as well, and that's great. One thing was, when you were talking about the players and the training and maybe coming back and not in the right shape, is there anything that falls on them? Surely even the leading players, the senior players, must notice that they're not training as hard, or they're not as fit as they maybe could be, or there's a couple of players overweight. I just feel there's some of it needs to fall on them as well.
It's funny you say that. I remember, and this is where it feels very much a sense of deja vu. I remember Scott Arfield speaking when Michael Beale came in as manager, and he spoke about the pre-season under Van Bronckhorst and how they hadn't done certain running sessions that they had done under Steven Gerrard previously. I think Gio had done a lot more with the ball, very much a continental approach to it. We seem to be 2 years on in a similar situation, and I think that's where I have hope that what happens this summer. But I think we've been here before, and we've heard these stories before. And I mean, you'd seen the videos. I think you've seen them the last 2 summers. I think Tav generally goes to Dubai, and I think works with a personal trainer across there. And he doesn't strike me as one of the players that would have came back. I think footballers are very good on social media now, so they like to put it out there that I'm working really, really hard in the off season, and I'm going to come back. I'm going to be in great condition, But I think there was a lot behind the scenes that wasn't great under Michael Beale. I think that's guys like Sakala and Glenn Kamara basically training away from the squad and all that sort of stuff. So, but the fitness and conditioning has been an issue going back a couple of seasons. I think the 55 season was, we were running over the top of teams, and in that season we showed our fitness, and I think that's the last time, and that's 3 years ago. We need to forget about the 55 season, it's done. It's in the past, but fitness and conditioning's been an issue across the last 3 managers.
No, I agree with you. I just think if you're someone like Tav, who's going, let's say, to Dubai to train with a personal trainer, and okay, Alfie was away this season, but you come back and see Morelos several pounds overweight, you'd be like, what's going on here? You'd probably begin speaking to the managers going, they need to get fitter than this. But it always seems to fall on, I guess, on Beale, who is ultimately responsible. But you think if you're the doctors or you're the players or you're even the other staff, the assistants or whatever, you're like, they're not doing as much as they used to when they were really, really fit, as you say. We need to forget about that season, as you're saying, but you think it shouldn't be too hard to get players into the same kind of conditioning. But again, I'm not an expert either, but it's just something that I felt it's not all just Beale for me. The players need to have a look at themselves as well.
Definitely. I mean, I think that's there's the much vaunted leadership group. You know, I'm tired hearing about that. You know, but I think your senior pros have an influence, and I look at the senior pros within that so-called leadership group, and I think I don't know. I don't know. I just think it's something that we have to be better, basically.
So we've got a few players away. As far as we know, the players that are out of contract just now aren't signing on. So you've got Barisic leaving. Hopefully for me, Lundstrom leaving. I don't wish him any ill will. I mean, I still, one of the best nights as a Rangers fan, that was what he gave us. So I don't wish him any ill will. I just don't think he is what we need going forward. And I think he's shown it this season in all the Old Firm games.
I just think that we've got an opportunity. I think it's 6 out of contract. I think there's a few quid there to spend better, sort of thing, and I think that's the challenge that Niels Coppen and Philippe Clement have got, is to get better value, get players that are going to be available, and get players that are going to actually contribute. I mean, the likes of Barisic, Barisic, for what we paid for him, I think has been a decent player for Rangers. But I think it's the overstayed his welcome sort of situation, and I think that's where we need to be better.
We're a couple of seasons on from that.
Yeah, I think we need to be better at getting rid of the player, the Calvin Bassey, off the back of a sensational run to Seville. You sell Calvin Bassey for 20 million. As a club, we become too attached to certain players. I don't think we're in that position at this moment, but I think that's because we've not sold players at the peak point.
The only one thing with that, I mean, Clement has said a few times that he can't have players running down their contract, but as far as I'm aware, we've never got offers for any of these players that maybe we could have sold. So that there is a difficulty in that the players are really the ones that they're in the kind of position of power. They can run down the contract, and then they know they'll get a big signing on fee on their next move. But I mean, I don't think we had much interest in Barisic. There's a couple of rumblings that there was interest in Morelos, but I don't think there was even much interest in Kent at some. Maybe I think Leeds maybe at one point, but I don't think we can necessarily blame the previous managers fully if we're not getting offers for these players.
I just think we talk about a trading model and all that, and do this and do that and do the next thing, and I think we're in a position where 6 players out of contract. If you'd asked me 8 weeks ago, I would have probably said all bar Lundstrom at that point. I genuinely thought Lundstrom was going to sign a contract, but obviously events have taken over, and that's obviously not going to happen. You've got Cortez on loan. You have got Sima on loan. I think Cortez will probably be another loan. I think we'll probably try to maybe do another 6-month loan with regard to that, so that he's given the opportunity to, before we commit.
Injuries must be a bit of a worry, though.
Definitely, and I think it would be a similar. I think Seamer's going into the last 12 months of his contract, so I think it'll be interesting to see what Brighton do when he goes back there, because obviously I think they've 6-7 million, so we're certainly not in a position, I think, to pay 6 or 7 million plus a 4-year contract. But I think if you could say he signs an extension with Brighton, and you get him back for another loan, that might work, sort of thing. I think we're going to have to make use of the loan market as much. I'm not a huge fan of the loan market and developing other clubs' players. But I think where we are with regard to budgets and what we need, we're not going to be able to get 12 permanent players that are our Rangers are all fully contracted to us, I don't think. But I think we just have to be making good use of the Bosman market, and trying to get players that are maybe going into the last year of their contract and just a bit wheeling and dealing. And the quality, I think you said early on, Billy, that if we bring 10 in, 9 of them have to be hitting the ground running. We can't have any project players. We have to have players that are going to come in and basically, be in that starting 11 as early as possible.
Well, we're in a fortunate position that we do actually have a few players we don't probably want to keep, but could still make some money on it. Hadji for one, Lammers hopefully should get a good chunk, if not more, back in his what we paid for him. Not that there's going to be a big queue for Dessers, but I mean, somebody's going to look at his goal scores for this, scoring this season and go, well, he scored 20 plus goals. There might be some value in it, but the elephant in the room, mate, is probably if we want to do serious business, does Jack Butland stay?
I think he's your prime asset, to be honest with you. The one thing that I do watch a lot of the league down south, and I don't see a great deal of clubs that I would say will be looking for a keeper this summer. That's the only thing that I can, cling to the fact that there isn't a Newcastle or a whatever. The likes of Everton. We use Everton as an example. They're skint. They're probably going to have to sell Pickford, sell Branthwaite, but they need to sell and then maybe bring somebody in on a free transfer. So they're not going to be in a position to give us 10, 12, 15 million pound for Jack Butland, but I think that's, I don't think he will be pushing for a move. I think he's loving life up here. It'll be interesting to see if he manages to make it into the England squad for the Euros as the third keeper, because I think it would be a nice reward for him for a good season. But I think he would bring in the most money, but I would rather not, to be honest with you. But I think you don't know what the pounds are. You just don't know what we're working with. You don't know what conversations are going on behind the scenes. But I'm clinging to the fact that I don't see a team that are desperate for a goalkeeper, and that's where Jack Butland's going to go to.
Mm-hmm. The one moment I remember is when McGregor came off in his testimonial, and it's almost like he's passing the torch on. And at that point, I was hoping this is going to be a long-term goalkeeper, because I've grown up. The first goalkeeper I remember is Chris Woods, and then we've got Andy Gorham, Stefan Klos, even Ronald Waterus was a good goalkeeper. So, and then McGregor obviously after that. So I'm used to having a decent goalkeeper.
Aye, likewise. I mean, my whole life watching Rangers has been great goalkeepers, and I think that's. I think Jack Butland, if he was to stay for 3, 4, 5 seasons, you look across the city at what's happened there with Joe Hart, and I'm not comparing the goalkeepers, but he's going to retire or leave Celtic or whatever it is he's doing this summer, and he's won like 5, 6 trophies across the 3 seasons, and I think he's been remembered as a really good goalkeeper for them as much as. I think I would love Jack Butland. What is Jack Butland in his early 30s? I think goalkeepers, he's a fit guy. He could go on for a while. Don't think anybody thinks he's going to finish his career in Scotland, but give us 3 or 4 years and then potentially go back down south and play the latter years of your career. But I would rather not. But that's the people that deal with the budgets and what have you are privy to the conversations. That's their decision to make. If they think that they can get top dollar for them, then unfortunately we might have to take it.
I mean, Clement, I think it's just newspaper garbage, I suppose, but apparently that was a red line for him, Don't know how the journalist found that out, but he wanted to keep Jack Butland, no questions asked. I just hope, personally, Jack Butland doesn't want to go. And I don't mean, as I say, I don't think he's the one rumbling for a move. I don't think he was thinking his England career was going to take off sitting on the bench in Man United's reserves or whatever. So I don't think that's a motivating factor. Maybe it'd be great to be back involved in it. I think Southgate, though, seems to want to bring a younger one along, like the next generation, which I do understand, as much as I would like Butland to go for him. I can see why he's maybe...
It's funny that I say it would be a nice recognition for her, but the selfishness of me as a Rangers supporter is I want Jack Butland to go on holiday next Sunday after winning the Scottish Cup on the Saturday, and then we don't see him until the end of June. Ideally, sort of thing, because if he's away with England, then it. But I do think it'll be. I think one of their younger goalkeepers or under 21 keepers or somebody like that he'll probably end up. But the fact that Butland's in the conversation means that he's had a good season.
Yeah. Well, we've discussed the season, mate. Well, we do have another 2 games still left of this season, I guess, technically. So we'll not dwell too much on the cup final, but touch on it as regards to your team for the weekend and how that relates to the cup final, because we will do a show on it, no doubt. Well, definitely we're doing shows on the cup final. So what are you looking for in this side? Because last year, or was it 2 years ago, we played Hearts, we played youngsters, but I don't see that being the case this year with an important game coming up.
I think options are very limited with regard to what we've got. You know, what we had on Tuesday night is pretty much what we've got. Of obviously, I don't know who the manager has said is anybody extra is available of those 11 or 12 players. I think anybody, a Dujon Sterling, a John Souttar, a Leon Balogun, I think if there's any sort of muscular issue, I think they'll be trying to just keep them next week to try to get a week of training ahead of the cup final. So tomorrow, I don't think the team will be very much different to it was midweek, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't think there's anything.
Since we've been on, mate, our Podo Tomo has given us an update. So he's saying it looks like Sima is going to be in the squad. Also, Jack, Suter, Goldson, Lawrence, Cortez. Oh, sorry. Jack, Suter, Goldson. Well, he's not worded it right.
I'm guessing they're all missing, probably.
No, he's going to be in the squad tomorrow along with Jack, and then it's Suter, Goldson, Lawrence, Cortez, Danilo still out, I think is what you're saying. So when I looked at the message right away, I thought, we've got them all back. But I think most of them are, you're right, are still going to be out. But Sima being back is, I mean, that's a boost I would like. Cortez would have been my other one if we could have got him back at least. But Sima being there, if Tomo's right, then I'm quite happy.
I'm thinking that have Sima on the bench tomorrow. I think we had conversation after Tuesday night. I think if Ridvan can start again and get an hour out of him, I think the manager said post-match on Tuesday that the medical people had said 45 minutes, I think, midweek. So I think he played about an hour. So I think if you could get another hour out of him again, give Robbie Fraser the last half hour. The likes of McKinnon and boys like that, I think. But I think your starting lineup from the other night, I don't think it'll be. I think it'll probably be what started. And then if you can get minutes into Sima, I mean that's a huge bonus going into next weekend if we can get Sima as an option. I mean, I'm trying to think to the cup. I'm now trying to think of my team for the cup final. So it's like,
I'm just hoping there's a couple more back available at least.
Well, I think defensively, I think I would have concerns going into the cup final with the Leon King having not played a lot of football and Ben Davis at the back. I wouldn't be too comfortable, but my hope is, I think, as I said before, you said that the players are still unavailable. My hope is that they're just being wrapped in cotton wool to get through the 90 minutes or whatever is needed to win the cup next Saturday. But I think tomorrow it's just about trying to avoid any more injuries, to be honest with you, and try to win the game and follow the performance of the second half. Try and not go 2 goals down before we start playing, which has been very much the way of the world in recent weeks. Just try and start a game like we finish a game, if that makes sense.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, the manager said it. He can't be getting angry at them every half time to get them to get in gear, I suppose. Well, neither of us really have anything to play for, seeing as both our positions are fixed now, second and third. So we'll probably win 9-0 or something when there's no pressure on.
It's you just don't know what you're going to watch. It's like it's Hearts' last home game, and they would probably want to end with a victory. We always tend to play quite well at Tynecastle and against Hearts and in general. So I just quite like to have a positive performance. And actually see what we're trying to do. We're actually moving the ball and passing and moving and creating and what have you. And I know it's a game that doesn't mean anything. So take away the fact that they've basically thrown a huge opportunity away. It's done. There's nothing we can do about it now. We just have to try and get a positive 3 points performance, no more injuries, and then take us into the. And if Seema's back and manages to get 15-20 minutes at the back end of the game tomorrow, then great. I just hope that he is ready. I just hope that
we're not just rushing him back.
I'd be worried if he's just started back training. Don't feel that we have to give him 20 minutes. If it means that he gets 4 or 5 days training next week ahead of the cup final, then so be it. But if he's only missed 2-3 weeks, it's not as if his fitness is going to have dropped massively. He was just back from his injury anyway when he's picked that up, So I would just, if this is the last we're going to see of Seema, it would be nice for him to get back and have a major impact across the next couple of weeks.
I mean, I'm still looking forward to it because I know we do have a Euro competition in the summer, and I do still like watching international football, but I like watching Rangers. So even though that game the other night there was meaningless as well, I still was looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to tomorrow, and I'm very much looking forward to the cup final, but with a bit of trepidation at the moment. But maybe the week of that'll change. But you've got any final thoughts, mate? Because that's us about an hour. So
no, it's there's so many things. It's been a season, as I said, a roller coaster season of emotions. We've been up, we've been down, we've been we if you'd said to me on the 1st of March that 8 weeks later we would have completely capitulated and we're not going on to lift a league title, then I thought we were in it until I thought we were properly in it. But unfortunately, that's try not to look back. It's done now. We just have to try to end the season with 2 cups and hope that the right decisions are made in the summer that allows us to have a far more successful season next year.
Yeah, 100% agree with you, mate. Thank you for coming on. Thanks for your time.
Problem.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Hope you've had an interesting hour. And if you've any agree with us, disagree with us, comment, tell your friends about us because we're a growing podcast. So we'd like to reach out to everyone we can. So thank you for your time, and we'll catch you next time.
Oh dear. 1-to-1's difficult. I've not done a 1-to-1 pod in ages.